Hi, hope you are doing well. Today we will discuss about shadows in Three.js. So let's start the video. Hi everyone, this is Subrat and you are watching Fun of Heuristics. So on this channel, you will get to know about the programming languages, the framework and all about the algorithm. So please consider subscribing and hit the bell icon if you haven't yet. In the previous video, we saw about what is our orbit control and we saw little bit more on different types of control what we have in Three.js controls, and you'll be clear by watching the video. If you haven't yet, I will link in the card. You can watch that one. The code you are seeing here is similar to our previous video, and that is also if you're going to see in the repository, it is same as our primitive controls. What we're going to do today is we'll add some shadow to our Three.js scene. So we're going to see the basic of shadow. So how we're gonna cast shadow on an object, how we're gonna cast shadow on a plane, and how it works with respect to the light. So it's directly affected by the amount of light you have and the number of lights you have around your scene. So we're going to see all that. And before proceeding, you can see here that if we want the shadow, we need a surface or a ground where the shadow will be projected. Okay, so obviously if you can put a light here, then this some amount of shadow can be projected on this surface or vice versa. So if you do like this, then some amount of shadow can be projected on the green cubes. So what we'll do, we'll add a plane, and on that plane we'll add our shadow. So here we'll create a method that is add plane and it will accept a scene. Here we'll just paste our code. So I'll go through the code and I will paste the code here and I will explain the code again. And this code I have grabbed from Three.js fundamental to add the plane. So it's the basic one. We are loading a texture loader. Here we are getting the texture PNG, which is a gray and white texture. And we are wrapping that one and we are repeating the texture so that it can be covered across all, because it's a very small image. So if I'll go and show you, so if you can see, this is the image here. So it's a pretty small image. We are repeating that texture so that it can be created as a grid in our plane. So we have a plane buffer geometry, we have a Phong material. And why Phong material? Because it is reactive to the light source that we have. If you remember in our previous code, I can show you here as well. We have used mesh Phong material here because we need our cubes to react to the light. Means the shadows, or not the shadow, the texture on the light, not in the light, texture on the cubes should be as to the light source what we have. If you see here, the intensity of the light in the three surface are pretty different. That's the reason we are able to see it's like a cube, and that's the reason we have added the mesh Phong material. And the similar will be happen for the plane what we are doing here, because if it will not react to the light, the shadow will not make any difference on that plane. So that's the reason mesh Phong material we are using here. And the map is a texture, side is a double side. So here we are creating the mesh, rotating the mesh by 90 degree. So by default the mesh will be like this. So as we need the mesh need to be on the plane, so the cubes will be on the surface. So we are rotating the mesh by 90 degree like this, and we are setting the position little below the Y. So what I will do, I'll just call this one where we have created our scene. You can see here we are getting some shadow kind of, some light kind of effect in this area, but we're not getting the plane. But if I just rotate the scene a bit or zoom in or zoom out, do anything, it will just start appearing. Okay, so if you see, it appear and this is our plane. And we have it's pretty reflected to the light because we have light here. Pause the video and think why on the load we aren't able to see the plane, but we are able to see the two cubes. But whenever I change something, then the queue just plain just appear somehow, or the reason behind it. And you can get that if you see the code. If you know before watching the solution, then just comment down below so that it will be pretty good that you find it yourself. I'll just explain the reason again. So what we are doing is we are not calling render, means we are not rendering our scene on every frame. So think like if you're just sitting like this, you're not doing anything, then you don't need to render anything because no image is getting changed in our scenario. So if your thing is moving, that means there is something change is happening. And in that case, you need to refresh your screen at your provided refresh rate. And that depends on the performance of your GPU and the supported monitor what you have. So if you change anything on the scene, then the render will call. And to see our plane on load, what I will do is I will create an event like on the resize. So we have two events. If you see here, we have two events, change and resize, and as it's a window event, so I have selected resize. So I have created an event and we'll try to run that event inside a set timeout. Now if you go, so now if you refresh also, you will see that we are getting our plane on load. So this you should remember if you are rendering like we are rendering here for APT optimization view. Obviously, if you have continuous change in your model, so this is not the way you should go. But if you are rendering or representing something, then you can go with this kind of rendering. So it will be optimized and it will save lots of GPU and CPU memory on your client machine. You can see here that we are getting our plane, we are getting our object, but there is no shadow. And enabling shadow on the surface on the scene is not that difficult. So what you need to do is there are some concepts behind it. So by default, no objects or no plane is enabled for shadow, and that the same case for the lights as well. So what you need to tell the Three.js, enable my light. If you can see here, so the light is somewhere here, enable my light so that it can project shadow. Okay, so as you can see here, we have three lights, one light here, and one in the top. Okay, so you can say here that, okay, Three.js only enable shadow for my behind light, means this light, and enable shadow for my objects so that this object can project shadow or can add shadow, so that whenever light will hit on them, there will be a shadow map created for the object. And similar for the plane, this shadow map what we are creating here, that can be casted on the plane. First we'll go and enable the shadow for our plane. As our plane will only receive the shadow, it will not project the shadow to any other surfaces, any other things. So for that, what we'll do, we'll enable receive shadow to true, so that your mesh can now receive the shadow. So what is receive means whenever this object will project the shadow by the help of light, so that your plane should be able to receive them, and that's how the shadow will be casted on the plane or in the body of a next object. So first what I'll do, I will just save. And if you save, if you go here, you say no difference because we haven't enabled our light yet. Then we'll go and add shadow to our light. So we'll go here. So if you remember, we have 3 directional light. So what I will do, I will go to this light, so which is present here, somewhere here, and I will enable the shadow here. So our light 2 dot cast shadow equals to true. And if you go here, then you'll see that there is not much difference because we have enabled shadow, which means casting shadow of a light, and we enable shadow for our plane, means receiving shadow for our plane, but we haven't enabled to create shadow for our objects. And I will just change the intensity of this to 1, and I'll just change the intensity little bit lesser, so that the shadow will be little clear. Now, as I told you that we need to enable the shadow for all our three elements. Okay, so we have enable shadow for our plane. We have enable shadow so that it can receive shadow. We have enable shadow for our light so that it can project shadow. Now we need to enable shadow for our object, and we need to enable for one more thing that I will tell you later. So if you go here in the previous video also, I have added the cast shadow to true. The shadow is already enabled. Okay, but what the reason is that it's not casting the shadow, and the reason is our scene is not enabled to cast shadow, and that we can enable here like renderer dot shadow map dot enable to true. Okay, and if you'll go to the browser, and you can see here that we are getting our shadow, and it's projected like this because we have enabled the shadow light for this one. So that's it for today. Today we saw what is shadow and how you can enable shadow for each and every element, like enabling shadow in light so that it can project shadow, enabling shadow for your plane so that it can receive your shadow, and enabling shadow for the object. And last but not the least is enabling shadow in your renderer so that it can render the shadow in your scene. So please hit the like button if you are liking the video till now, and please do subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you will not miss future videos. And please share this video among your friends, family, colleague. Let them know how they can use shadow in their projects, and please give some valuable comment in the comment section below. Those are pretty helpful, and if you have some doubt, you can ask me anytime, and we will going to meet in the next video. Till that, stay happy. Bye bye.